So I thought about last week's class all week. That's pretty powerful.
All right.
Yeah. I thought I was actually going to bring it up if we actually met again, last week. I was going to say, can we go a little deeper into that and get that thing nailed down a little bit more?
Sure.
Or how that, or is there a correlation to the beginning part of Sri Aurobindo that you taught me? Is there something you can relate to in that teaching? Remember all those things that we taught in the beginning, the first emanations?
Yeah, of course. There are 3 stages of creation, and they will be all here, in a way. Yes. One is embracing the other. One is within the other, so to say. Right. Well, of course, it's a matter of speech. Yeah, we are kind of trying to formulate this to our mind, which is operating within time and space, and we cannot speak in other figures, but these, symbols of stages of creation and so on and so forth. This is a symbolic or mythical language, rather. But there is no other way to explain it to the mind, because it operates always in time and space. It looks at everything through these glasses. It doesn't know anything else. So how else would you tell it or explain to it this thing?
Mm-hmm.
That's what Sri Aurobindo says, that somebody objected to his using symbolic language, and he says, how else would you speak to our mind if not in symbols, which mind can recognize?
Right. Yeah. I remember the first time I heard that, that kind of opened up a big door of a deeper understanding that, of course, it's the only way you can speak of things that are not right in front of us. People have difficult time describing the manifestation right in front of you. People don't agree on it right there, and you can see it and touch it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and still there is an element which is, how to say, corresponding to this form of the symbol as representative of that force or that consciousness behind. There will be some kind of symmetry or correspondence between the two, between the inner reality and outer embodiment of this inner movement, and can't be otherwise. It is the same reality manifested in form, in time and space.
What's beautiful about that is that you can't disagree. You can only give your perspective on something, and if someone can expound on that or just see how you're relating to just that, but there can't possibly be an argument or disagreement. Well, I can't imagine, right?
Well, people, we can, of course, argue about symbols, saying that this symbol is not totally fitting, it's not totally true, and so on and so forth. Somewhere even Mother explains this, saying that many people claim that they met Jesus Christ in the subtle body, in the subtle world. But what they met was something, some light or some presence, which they, presented to their mind as Jesus, because that is the only thing they know. That is the only way they can approach that light. So,
right.
On what it was, we have hardly any idea. And she says, among many those experiences, only few may be connected with Jesus. The rest are connected for all other forces, yeah. But they're
Right.
presented as Jesus. So this is the symbolism. Symbolism is always approximate in a way. To
Hmm.
have a pure symbolic representative of the event of this inner mm, experience is quite difficult. One has to have a mind which is very sharp and already tuned to the inner experience. Mm.
Well, much like I remember reading something. I may have shared this with you. Reading is something on the holographic,
Mm.
a holographic dimension that you project into it your thought, and then you have an experience, and you think that's what you experienced, but it was really you just experienced what you thought that might be.
Mm. Mm.
And I said, well, that's certainly something to digest. It's like, then how do you really tell that what you're experiencing is really something true, or is that just a projection of what you think? It like that symbol, just like prime example, the symbol. It's like, oh, I met Jesus Christ. Well, you you met what you thought you would be meeting Jesus Christ. This is what it would be like if you saw Jesus Christ, or
Correct.
someone else. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, and it goes even farther than that. Hi, Lynn. Lynn is joining us.
Hi.
Sri Aurobindo says even that the real force of the spiritual representatives, so to say, to our consciousness, which we may perceive, if we compare it with the experience of the projection of the vital onto this force or onto any vital force, we would, because there are many forces which would like to present themselves as that real one. For example, Jesus coming to you in the dream, and you believe that it is Jesus, but it is actually some vital force which wants your, subtle energy of faith and belief, and and it gets from you because you believe that it was Jesus. Yeah, you are
Right.
uh,
Right.
crying there, weeping and praying and all that in the dream, and you wake up very uplifted that you had this contact with Jesus, and there was no Jesus. There was vital force which made you believe that it was Jesus. Now, this is another symbolism. Yeah, what is behind that symbol? We have to know. Symbol is one part. It can be correct or incorrect. But if there is correct or there is true experience of the spiritual presence, then symbolism is less important. It is somehow to teach our mind or to make our mind aware how to link to that um, experience. And it is always approximate. That's why we choose so many symbols. We are drifting from one particular how to say view to another. We are always shifting to give as many views as we can. Why? Because we want to outline that entity which is there as an experience, and it is becoming more and more vivid through many views. One view would be insufficient. We need to shift. We need to always look from different perspectives. For the mind, I mean, we are teaching the
Right.
mind to recognize the entity or the event or the experience. Now, this is for the mind, but there are also other ways that there is no true experience. This is to say, vital force presents itself as Jesus Christ, and then you have it. You believe in it, and it is, as Mother says, among the thousands of those who had experience with Jesus, hardly few had contact with the real Jesus. Yeah? There were only those who had contacts with other forces, whatever they are, good or bad, doesn't matter.
Hmm. Yeah. So we're constantly. It's interesting. The symbolism I saw online said, does the poor dog have to go lean to follow the path of karma? So is the dog the mind, where it's like, we're constantly uh, we're constantly baiting the mind to open up so we can have the experience. Are we
Yeah, you see, we may have experiences with even mind which which cannot understand what is going on. But to link to the mind and to become aware, to become conscious of what is going on, we must explain this to the mind in the most suitable manner, that it is becoming more and more, how to say, receptive of what is going on within, and not intruding and not interfering and misinterpreting. So we have to remove all those possible errors of interpretation. Somewhere also Mother says that there are many people who have many experiences, spiritual experiences, but their interpretation, but there are only few who have right interpretation what has happened to them.
Mm.
It's the same with this Jesus. Yeah, the force comes to you and you believe it's Jesus. It's misinterpretation of the mind. Yeah? You do not see the real event, the real force. Of course, to recognize that force, and it requires more than the mind. It requires viveka, discrimination, not only in the mind, but also something which is beyond the mind. And the soul, this psychic being, has to be very, how to say, um, more receptive towards what is going on, has to recognize the true event or it is not true. There are certain things which, if we do not feel, which we do not have in our experience, we can't figure out what it is. It looks like totally Jesus, or but then there is no distinction within the heart. The heart does not give you a signal to say that this particular flavor cannot be mixed into this pure light. It's a feeling of some kind. Yeah? That particular excitement would not be there if the spiritual experience would be there in pure sense. There would be pure enjoyment and no excitement and no enthusiasm, which is for example, the sight or the sign of the vital force. If you are very enthusiastic after such a contact, then it means that there is vital force, basically, and not the spiritual one. So these things are known through experiences and through making many mistakes and over years and over incarnations, most probably.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That was quite a intro. Thank you. It is. It's for me. It's brand new. I mean, this is an area that it's the very beginning. And how do I navigate through those experiences? Because once I get where I'm going again, there's more time to explore that without the distraction of the other everyday workings and the responsibility. Yeah.
All right, so we were here in the number 9, I think, or number 8 we stopped. Okay, I will start with mantra. Om Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tammaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. Yeah, so we started in chapter 9, which is profound in one way. This is the Rahasyamuttamam, the highest, the supreme secret. Sarva bhutani kaunteya prakritim yanti mamikam. All the beings, O Kaunteya, follow my prakriti. Kalpakshaya punastani kalpada visrajamyaham. And at the beginning of Kalpa, I produce all these beings, and at the end, they again disappear. So, prakritim svam avashtabhya visrijami punah punah bhutagramam imam kritsnam avasham prakriti vashat. And my prakriti, my nature, having established, I release, or I create again and again the whole bunch of these beings or becomings, the whole number of them, all this multitude of existences. I project out of it, or out of the, it's not said where from. So having established the Prakriti as the foundation, I fill it in again and again with the bulk, with the multitude of existences. It reminds me, you know, what Aitareya says. Aitareya explains the creation in two stages. The first, the foundation was made, and the foundation was very interestingly described. It is the upper ocean, the supreme ocean, the space in between, so to say, heaven, space in between earth and underground waters. So subconscious ocean. So superconscious ocean above, heaven, space in between earth and superconscious, subconscious ocean. So we have two waters, two oceans, superconscious above and subconscious below. And in between, heaven and earth, and space in between. And this is the first foundation which was created by Atman, according to Aitareya. Then he pulled out from the lower waters Purusha, formed it and concentrated on it, its consciousness, heated it up. And so Purusha broke forth as egg breaks, and from his mouth the speech broke forth, and from the speech fire, from his nostrils the breath broke forth, prana, from prana vayu, from his eyes the chakshus, the sight broke forth, from the sight the sun was born, the light. From his ears the hearing broke forth, from ears, from hearing the space came into existence. So all these devatas, when they broke forth from the universal Purusha, one by one, his heart broke forth, his navel, all one by one. These devatas, cosmic devatas, plunged into the inconscient ocean of that first creation. You know? They became lokapala. These were lokas. First creation was lokas, and second were lokapalas, those who protect or those who fill the worlds. They were infused into the worlds. So now look how Sri Krishna here speaks about it, very interestingly. So Prakritim svam avashtabhya. Avashtabhya, it is literally means established, having established it below. Having established as the foundation one's own Prakriti, I release again and again the whole bunch, the whole multitude of these existences into it. Avasham prakriteh vashat. This number of lokapalas, or those protectors, or those who feel the manifestation, is avasham. That means helpless. They cannot do anything. They have to follow only the law of Prakriti. So this is quite interesting that I noticed only now, Avashtabhya, this particular two creations. Yeah? Prakritim svam avashtabhya. Avashtabhya means having established one's own prakriti, I release this multitude of existences. It's exactly as Aitareya describes it. First there was the foundation, the lokas, the worlds, and then there were those who were dwelling within the worlds, lokapalas. They were created in the second stage of creation. So it corresponds to these two stages of creation which you were mentioning today, Gregory. Exactly this. Here the same language. Of course, nobody pays attention to this when it is being translated because it is too sophisticated, what I'm trying to explain. But within the language, it's obvious, yeah? Because there is this gerundive. Having established one's own nature, I release this multitude of creatures. So that's clear. The first one establishes the foundation. Second, he releases. And they are helpless. They cannot help themselves. They are totally dependent on Prakriti now. Nachamam tani karmani nibandhananti dhananjaya. And these all actions do not bind me or Arjuna. Udasinavat asinam asaktam teshu karmasu. It's as if udasinavat, as if I am disinterested, literally sitting above udasinavat, as if I sit above, sitting not attached, asaktam teshu karmasu, in those activities. As if I am indifferent to all those actions which I produce, being within them, as if. Again, this word as if, vad, suffix vad says it's like that. But again, this is a figure of speech which we cannot explain to our mind better than this. Because our mind would not understand why that as if is there. Because there is no other language for the mind to really show how it is. So the karmas are not binding Krishna, the Lord. They are, and that's why he wants us also to gain that specific, particular consciousness, to be detached from the fruit of action, because it is actually the consciousness of the Lord. If we are detached from the fruit of action, we can gain his consciousness. Not immediately, of course, not at once. It requires a lot of effort and constant kind of experience, but still, step by step, we can arrive at this, at his vision of how things are done in this world. Then we will see, as Sri Krishna says, that actually this is the Prakriti who does the work, not him. He is there udasinavat, as if detached, and she is doing all the work. Whether we want it or not, she will be doing it. We don't need to do much. She will do it within us, because we are also Prakriti. So our body, physical, vital, and mental, is Prakritis, instruments. So they will be moving. They will be doing things. Only we are not aware of it. We think that it is we who are doing. We do not see that it is she who is doing, because we do not have this consciousness of the Lord. But the moment we have it, we will see that it is She, Shakti of Ishvara who does the whole work. Of course, he sanctions it. He gives his sanction. But she is the doer, the executrix. Maya dhyakshena prakritih suyate sacharacharam. That's exactly what we just said. But under my supervision, Prakriti is producing everything which moves and which doesn't move. Hetunanena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. Hetu is actually the reason, and by this reason, all in this world is being, how to say, continues or rotates or proceeds in cycles. It's by this reason that everything moves. The whole world is constantly moving in cycles. So Jagat is the world, the universe, from root gam to go. It is a moving universe, constantly rotates. And we know that nothing stays static in this world. Everything moves non-stop with a huge speed. We are constantly occupying new vistas in the space. Space is always new for us in this infinite, universe. So by this, because of this reason, because of this cause, this causes. Let us read what Sri Aurobindo says. I am the presiding control of my own action of nature. Not a spirit born in her, but the creative spirit who causes her to produce all that appears in the manifestation. Because of this, Kaunteya, the world proceeds in cycles. It is a similar vision we have in Sankhya. The Prakriti begins her creation the moment Purusha attends to her, looks at her. He is Sakshi, he is the witness. The moment he witnesses her, notices her, she begins her creation. She mixes up the gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas guna, mixes them up and produces the whole multitude of movements within this time and space. But the moment he withdraws his attention from her, she immediately falls into equilibrium. So she disengages these three gunas of sattva, rajas, and tamas. They become kind of in this embryonic or drowsy state of sleep. They are not activated, as it were. And then the whole universe falls into pralaya, into the non-existent state.
So what you're saying, as soon as Purusha withdraws its attention, everything else kind of
Falls away.
stops.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when he puts the attention on it, it starts to
to move.
It starts the action. Well, and Prakriti starts the action.
Yes. So she's always doing under his supervision. That's why he will say that even though he has nothing, or he said already, even though he has nothing to achieve in this world, still he continuously does the work in the sense that he is present with his attention. He has nothing to achieve. There's nothing in this world that he needs or wants to achieve. But he's present constantly, because if he would not, then the world would fall into oblivion. He mentions this before. So he is needed for this Prakriti to do the work. And here he says in a different way, it's under my supervision that she produces moving and unmoving objects. And by that supervision, by that reason, or that cause, the world is proceeding in its cycles, whirling in this space.
It's very interesting, and it's almost like a metaphor for relationship. There was a video on Gaia TV called The Secret of Water, and the person did an experiment with water and 3 bottles of rice with water and let it sit for a month. And one, he gave the positive intentions, and the second one, he gave it negative intentions, and the third one, he gave no energy at all. And at the end of the month, of course, the one with the highest adulations, was progressing beautifully. The one with bad intentions progressed, but not as quickly. But the worst case scenario was the one that had no energy at all. And that came to mind. And I said, you think about that even in relationship, when partners kind of like stop talking to one another. There it is. Purusha just pulled the energy. They both pulled their energy away from the relationship. Nothing grows. It gets stagnant. And then years and years later, they don't even know each other. But it's just kind of like what came to mind with this metaphor here. And I've heard this before, but now I've been able to, I guess, put it to better use. Thank you.
Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanum ashritach param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. But the bewildered one, those who do not know, do not recognize me, or how to say, deluded minds despise me, lodged in the human body. They know not my supreme nature of being Lord of all existences. So they think that he is present in this body, and they do not know his supreme nature, which is beyond this body. This is something materialistic, or they think that this is the divine as it is. Yeah, it is in a way, but in a different form. The divine in pure state of consciousness is beyond always. He is struggling here with this notion that we think that the divine is present in the body. And by that they can justify things which he does not agree with. Yeah? Our mind has to know that the divine is beyond, and Prakriti will be doing the work for him, to embody him. Now, but this is the first stage, as Sri Aurobindo says. The first stage, we recognize him as witness beyond Prakriti, always beyond, unborn self. Yeah? Immortal, beyond our manifestation, witnessing the actions of Prakriti above the head. But then, the second stage, we recognize that he is not only beyond witness, but he is also Anumanta, the one who gives sanctions to the Prakriti to act. And without his sanction, Prakriti will not do much. And if you give a sanction that this thing is to be, she will do everything to make it. Or if you say no to something, then she would refuse to do it, even if there is a drive for it, as Sri Aurobindo says. If there is strong habit and strong desire um, or inertia of her works, if Purusha says no, does not give sanction to continue this work, she will drop it. And Sri Aurobindo says we need this power of Purusha for this yoga. Otherwise we will be going round and round, will never have effect on the changes which we must achieve during sadhana. So we do not have that will of Purusha. That's why we repeat our mistakes constantly. And even deeper, one more step, when we recognize that Purusha is not only sanctioning her moves, but he is her, then he becomes Ishvara and she becomes his Shakti. So there is no more division on Purusha and Prakriti. There is one being, Ishvara Shakti. She is him and he is her. But that is the third stage. Among these stages, there are differences, fundamental differences. Shri Krishna here speaks of this first stage, that we should know that the divine has its own reality, its own mind, as it were, its own way of looking at things and deciding things from beyond, not from here, not determined by nature. The divine is free, always free. This is the first discovery and the most important, without which the second and the third does not make sense, do not make sense. Moghasha mogha karmanach mogha jnana vichetasah rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shrita. All their hope, action, knowledge are vain things. When judged by the divine and eternal standard, they dwell in the Rakshasic and Asuric nature, which dilutes the will and the intelligence. Literally, Moghashach, in vain they have, those whose hopes are in vain. Mogha karmanach, whose actions are in vain. Mogha jnana, whose knowledge or realization is in vain. Vichetasach, of the ones who do not know. Rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shrita. They found refuge in the bewildering prakriti of Rakshasic and Asuric nature. The mother has the agenda, 13 volumes of her intense yoga in the last years of her life. And in the preface to this agenda, she writes a very interesting message. She says that those who, whatever their powers are and achievements in the world and wealth and money and knowledge, and if they don't give to the divine anything of that what they gain in this life, they are absolute zeros for the divine purpose. And there are those who give everything, what they have, are, think, feel. These are true children of the divine. What shocked me so much, absolute zeros for the divine purpose. Whatever position they hold, whatever the wealth they have, whatever they may think of themselves, and others may consider them to be important, they're absolute zeros. So here the same story. Moghashach, absolutely in vain the hopes. Mogha karmanach, those whose actions are absolutely in vain, useless actions. Mogha jnana, useless knowledge, people of useless knowledge. Because they found refuge in the Rakshasic and Asuric nature. So basically they become a material for this work. You know? They are kind of part of that movement of nature where they give their own consciousness to this movement rather than identify it with the divine in them. In other place, in the Isha Upanishad, Isha defines 3 different attitudes to our life. The first attitude, that all this is for habitation by the Lord, therefore, having become free from the object of enjoyment, you should enjoy this world as the Lord does, being free. Because whose wealth is it? It is your wealth as the Lord. But Isha, the moment you become attached to anything, thinking that you may have it or possess it, you become an Isha, because you become dependent on the object of enjoyment. So the freedom depends on this. To become the Lord, you have to be free from the object of enjoyment and enjoy it as the Lord does. Nobody says to you, don't enjoy the object. Enjoy it freely, without attachment. This is first liberation. There is second shloka which says, but doing here verily works, kurvan neveha karmani. It's not in the text. I'm speaking from the mind from the Isha Upanishad. But doing here verily works, one should wish to live 100 years. One should wish to stay till the end of the cycle. Why it is said? Because once you are free, as the Lord is free, you may think, why should you stay in this nature and do the work? Better to go and to be unborn self, ever blissful, ever, peaceful, ever joyful and knowledgeable and fulfilled, absolutely fulfilled. Can you imagine you have absolute fulfillment in yourself? Why should you stay here and suffer this kind of division and work? That's why second shloka says, but doing here verily works till the end of life. That means not leaving before. Thus, and not otherwise, karma does not create consequences, does not stick to man. So there is only one way to bring karma and to make it divine. It is to be free here in manifestation and to act to hold on to that freedom of consciousness of the Lord and act, and that creates a new world. This is what we do for Him, for the Lord. This is another poise, another attitude. And the last one belongs to those who identify themselves with Prakriti. Asurya nama te loka andhena tamasavritaha. And these are the worlds of asuras, or without light, covered by blind darkness. Tanste pretya bhigachanti yekechatmahano janaha. Into those worlds they enter, those enter who killed themselves, who destroyed their own divinity, who identified themselves with the moment of nature. So they enter into the blind darkness after death. After leaving body, they will enter into that what they were identified with. They gave their, so to say, priority, they gave their consciousness to nature. So here we have Moghasha, yeah? In vain their hopes, Mogha Karmana, in vain their actions, in vain their knowledge of those who do not have discrimination, because they identified themselves with Asuric and Rakshasic nature, of this nature which is trying to survive on its own, by its own means, as we all do nowadays. We live totally in Asuric and Rakshasic nature. We are worshipping sustainability. We want to sustain. Well, this is stage one. We should not forget. Yeah? We're speaking about stage one. There is a deeper look where we will see that even this Rakshasic and Asuric nature does its work and is needed for the manifestation. This is stage 2 already, and 3. Later we will see the necessity of these. But at the stage 1, it's important to realize the divinity within ourselves. We need to see this. These 3 options. First, being free from the object of enjoyment. Second, becoming free, becoming the Lord, and at the same time doing here works till the end of our life to create completely new nature, new embodiment of the divine in the world. And the third one, to identify with nature, our consciousness, and to be lost for a while, of course, for a while, because the soul cannot be lost so easily. I do not know why I shifted to Isha Upanishad, because of this Moghasha, that their hopes, actions, and knowledge are in vain. In a way, it is very true. When these rich and very powerful people die, they leave nothing behind themselves. The nature created the wealth, created everything, and they were just instruments of nature. They disappear as if they were not there at all. For themselves, they are not. In themselves, in their consciousness, they are absent. They are identified with nature's movement. And when they have to depart from it, they have nothing at all, where to go or what to identify with. Everything is left behind. Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashritav bhajanti ananya manasah jnatva bhutadim avyayam. But the great souls, Mahatmanah too, mam partha daivim prakritim ashritah, they find refuge in the divine prakriti and me. Bhajanti. No, it's not like this. Mahatmanas to mam partha, and the great souls, me, O partha, having found refuge in the divine prakriti, love, bhajanti, ananyamanasah, with no other mind. They have no other mind, no other concentration, only me. With me they share everything, everything they are and they want to be. And having known me, jnatva, bhutadim avyayam, the beginning of all creation and the imperishable. The beginning or the origin of all creatures, bhutadim avyayam. Avyayam, imperishable, from whom all existences originate. This is the style of Vyasa, where he is confusing with his language. He puts mam, the object, in the first line, and jnatva at the end of the second line. And in between he puts many sentences, and it is not totally immediately visible. Yeah? That was confusing Ganesha, so he could rest a little. But Ganesha had to figure out the meaning. Yeah. Satatam kirtayantah mam yatantasya dridhavratah namasyantasya mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Always adoring me. Upasate. Satatam, always upasate, the last word. They adore, worship me. Steadfast. Yatantah. In spiritual endeavor. Dridhavratah. Dridhavratah, with holding steadily to their vows, bowing down to me, namasyantah, mam, with devotion, bhaktya, they worship me ever in yoga. Nitya yukta, constantly in yoga, united, upasate, they worship. So, satatam, always, kirtayantah, adoring, or praising, mam, me, yatantah, being steady or under control, dridhavratah, with steady vows, namasyantah cha, bhaktya, adoring me or bowing down or surrendering to me with adoration, nitya yuktah, constantly united, upasate, they worship me.
That's an interesting thought to maybe you can expound on worship me. When previously when we started, it's we're not, if we're removing ourselves from the fruit of the action, how do you worship without the thought of some fruit of action? I mean, like, why are we worshiping? There's an action, and there's a result. There's the fruit of an action. So, what is the action to worship, and how do we not be attached to what it is? The fruit of that worship. We're worshiping Him. Worship me. So then it says, if you worship me, then you will be in this. What you just said here, you'll always be in the bliss, or not into rajasic or asuric nature. So then if we're worshiping Him, when in fact it's already there. So if we worship, what's the fruit? That we become that. So then we get attached to, like you kind of like said earlier, we get attached to that fruit, to worshiping, to be in that state of mind and not in another one.
Oh, yeah, Prakriti can, of course, trick us into this.
Okay.
To go and every day to the church and, to put some
Right.
candles and incense sticks and think that we did our duty and now the time is to live. After for 1 week we live.
Right.
Right. At the end of the week we worship. And so what else do you want from us?
Right.
We confess all that what we did during the week, and at the end we worship. Now, interestingly, that worship is not totally a right word. Again, upasate literally means who approach me close, and that is worship. Who are constantly, how to say, seeking His presence.
Okay. Yeah. That's a little bit more clear. Always seeking the presence. There's no time to look back for the fruit, because you're constantly seeking the presence, and with each experience you build a deeper connection, and it just keeps going deeper, and which is endless. We'll never get there, but it's, at least we're doing it without the fruit of it. It's seeking. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Otherwise, it can become really, religiously, it can become a fruit, because you have to worship so many times as it is done, for example, in Islam, 4 times a day, you must do it. Otherwise, in Christianity, you must go on Sunday to the church. You must. Otherwise, again, there will be some kind of problem in your consciousness. Or even more to it, that goes even to the extent that this obligation to worship. Yeah, I mentioned to you before that I was in Korea lived with a very nice couple, and his wife was very religious, and so she had to read Bible many times because priest told her so. So to speed up the reading of the Bible, she was putting different speed on the tape, and in 2 hours she could read the whole Bible. So, and it was running like this. I thought, what is that sound? I came out and I saw her sitting in front of that tape recorder, speeding up the tape, because she had to read the whole Bible, So this is the worship, real one.
You should have put the book under the pillow and just laid down on it and did it that way.
Well, she was more concerned that she had to be literal. She had to go through text, and that is how it was done. And she listened carefully to it.
I bet you after a long time, if you stopped her right there, she'd probably tell you what it was saying. Somewhere she would know.
Could be
Yeah.
superhuman ability, and
Yeah. Right.
why not? Maybe, the Lord would give her this superhuman ability sometime.
I will grant the possibility of pundits appearing in different times and places in that context. I studied astrology with a Black Pentecostal minister who one could walk up to him and say, "Bishop, please tell me where exactly in the Bible you find reference to chariots," and he would cite chapter and verse, this, yes, because that was his education. He'd gone beyond it, but he knew it backward and forward.
The same with the Hindu priests and Brahmins. They know texts by heart, back and forth. Anything, everything, whatever verse, number, half of the verse, in the middle, at the end, backward, forward, they will read to you with no mistake. This is something, it's an ability, it's a skill. But then the skill is understood as knowledge, and then we have it. Then we start worshipping books. We put books into the corner, put some incense sticks around. Or we start reading texts without understanding them, without knowing what they say, as it is done in the Vedic language, in the Vedas. People read texts, but with no understanding. And they say we don't need to understand. It's quite difficult. The sound is enough. The sound creates the vibration, and vibration does the work. That's what they say. Of course, there is a vibration, but is it enough for knowledge? In that case, we can really run the tape recorder if vibration is important. I think the vibration with consciousness is important, with understanding of the meaning. Then it is a very different vibration than just vibration without understanding what it was about. Right. And it's interesting that having said this, we are coming to the next shloka, which is saying exactly this. Jnana yajnana chapyanye, about jnana yajna. Jnana yajna is this recitation or svadhyaya, reading text for oneself, with meaning or without. You see how everything is led to in the same direction. It's quite remarkable when we discuss things and then I see in the next shloka exactly the same point. It's as if it is calling for it, or as if it is needed to be there to explain more what it means upasate, what it means to be aware of his presence. All right, we stop here and we'll take this shloka next time about svadhyaya. We will look into this beautiful idea of what svadhyaya is. Because on this technique, the whole Indian civilization is built. How to recite, how to read the text for oneself. And to understand it and what is happening to you. It's a kind of a sacrifice. Something similar we are doing here by reading the text and trying to figure out the meaning. It's not purely svadhyaya. Svadhyaya has to be without interpretation. The meaning has to come from the text, which we understand. But since we do not have Sanskrit knowledge, we have to translate and to explain. So it's kind of interpretative svadhyaya. But if you have Sanskrit knowledge and you can read text to yourself silently in the morning or in the evening, better in the morning when you are totally fresh, and observe the flow of the meaning, you will get incredible insights, deep thoughts and presence of the spirit. So this is the reason why Swadhyaya was necessary. Sri Krishna will say that Jnana Yajna is the highest form of sacrifice. The sacrifice by knowledge. All right, then I'm close with mantra, and we will continue from 15, shloka 15 next time. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.
Thank you, Vladimir. Always a pleasure. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next time.
Yeah, bye.